final speaker this morning is Ed Martin, President and CEO of Nalcor Energy. Ed is a graduate of Memorial University of Newfoundland with a Bachelor of Commerce degree, and the University of Calgary Master of Business Administration. He has over 30 years of experience in the energy sector, including onshore and offshore oil and gas. Ed joined Nalcor Energy in August 2005 and is leading Nalcor and its subsidiaries with a steadfast focus on safety leadership, asset management, operational excellence, performance, and growth. Under his guidance, Nalcor is involved in large-scale energy developments and operations in both the hydro and oil and gas sectors. This includes advancing the province's hydropower developments, equity ownership in 3 offshore oil and gas projects, operation of 2 utility companies, and ownership of a fully integrated industrial fabrication site. Nalcor is also involved in leading-edge research and development in a renewable energies project. In 2013, Ed was named Energy Person of the Year by the Energy Council of Canada, an honor he received jointly with Chris Huskinson, CEO of Emera. He was also named one of Canada's 2012 Clean 50 and Clean 16 from Corporate Knights Inc. and the Delta Management Group in recognition of Nalcor's environmental efforts. He is a founding member of the Newfoundland and Labrador CEO Safety Charter. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ed Martin.
Well, thanks a lot, Raymond, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here, a pleasure to be back. Building on one of Brent's key themes, first things first, I'd like to take a moment for safety. I'd like to note that Nalcor is making great progress in the safety journey, and we're proud to say after 8 years of extremely dedicated, focused work, last year we had the best year in the history of the company from when we were recording these statistics with respect to our safety journey. You can never take your eyes off the ball. We won't. It is a journey. It's never over. But for the first time in Nalcor's history, I believe that we have the traction and the ability to move to the next level, which is sustained high-level performance that will compare favorably anywhere in the world. That's where we are now. We intend to continue to sustain that. Personally, it's been a great year. 2 months ago, one of the best things that ever happened to me happened. I became a grandfather for the first time. And yes, it's really, really as good as all the other grandparents have been telling me. We just can't get enough of the little guy. Amongst other things, Alexander's birthday has spurred reflection. You know, it's very clear to me now as I watch my son and my daughter-in-law interact with their child, how the actions and decisions that my wife and I made 32 years ago are now impacting my grandson, the next generation. It makes me think. It reinforces the fact, it's much clearer to me now, how essential it is to consider the impacts and decisions that I'm making, we're making, with respect to the future of the province. The impact it will have will truly be felt 30 to 40 years from now. And that has to be the context in which we're making our decisions. I've also come to realize that 35 years is not a long time. I was considering the following as I was writing this speech the other night, and I thought I'd share some with you, just to put that in perspective. 49 years ago, 1965, our good friends the Rolling Stones released Ain't Got No Satisfaction. Bill Clinton, it struck me, was first elected President of the United States 21 years ago, in 1993. The Honorable John Crosby, who's here today, the father of the offshore for Newfoundland and Labrador, who we had the pleasure of hearing from. He was appointed Canada's Justice Minister 30 years ago in 1984. And his good friend Danny Williams, who was also in 1984, was first appointed Queen's Counsel. Norway's first oil discovery, Ekofisk, was discovered 45 years ago in 1969. Hibernia was also discovered 35 years ago. First oil was drilled and attained 17 years ago in 1997. The Great Churchill Falls experienced first power 43 years ago in 1971. And Bay d'Espoir, the heart of the Newfoundland and Labrador Island power system, first power 47 years ago, 1967. You get the drift. Time moves very, very quickly. In 35 years, particularly in this business, in the energy business, and in life itself, is a very, very short time frame. And whether it's music, politics, oil and gas, or building hydro dams, the impact and value that they create for society resonates for well over 35 years, many, many times for hundreds of years, generations. You know, Newfoundland and Labrador, we're poised for greatness. The groundwork's been laid by many people in this room. I saw Premier Peckford a few moments ago. The Honourable John Crosby. I'm not going to go naming people because I name almost everyone in this room. But the groundwork laid by these people is now being felt in this room today, 30 to 40 years later. We are now poised, I believe, for greatness. We have what the world needs. Consider what's happening around us. Worldwide oil demand continues to grow. The geopolitical risk is here to stay. Who would ever have thought the Syria-Iraq situation would have developed so fast over the past few months, driving the impact of the volatility of oil prices has on the world. The Russia-Ukraine politics of gas, highlighting the strategic importance of energy everywhere in the world. The unrest in Venezuela, I don't believe we've seen the impact on oil price yet. That is yet to be seen. Consider President Obama's recent proclamation in the United States that he's now driving a target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 30% below 2005 levels by 2030. And by the way, from a greenhouse gas electricity perspective, that's right in Newfoundland and Labrador sweet spot. The Canadian Electricity Association predicts that just to maintain Canada's electrical system, what we have today, just to maintain what we have today, they estimate is going to require an investment of $230 billion over the next 20 years. So against this backdrop, let's consider Newfoundland and Labrador. Let's not forget, we're starting with 500,000 people, highly educated, highly motivated, but 500,000 people. We have massive oil and gas resources. We have massive hydro in place and yet to be developed. We're located next to the largest market in the world for electricity and oil and gas. Plus, unlike our western cousins, we have access to Brent oil prices because our oil is transported on the water. For once, it's great to be an island. And think about the future in oil and gas, just how big it can be. Geographically, we're 2.5 times the size of the North Sea and almost 2 times the size of the Gulf of Mexico geographically. But we've seen just a fraction of the exploration activity that these areas have seen. Yet, when we do drill, the amount of oil we find per well rivals that of the UK sector in the North Sea. Our new 2D seismic work, very exciting, particularly in the slope and deep water areas. We're seeing some fantastic things, there's no question about it. Companies are taking notice. We know there's lots there. Land management system changes by the CNLOPB, outstanding. It's making Newfoundland and Labrador competitive with other major jurisdictions from the land management perspective for the first time in our history. When we use conservative assumptions for the amount of exploration wells that we think will end up being drilled over the coming years as we develop and sell and push, and companies realize with respect to this 2D seismic what's out there, and using Bay to Nord as an example, my prediction is that we will clearly exceed the reduction levels that the North Sea is seeing, and we will clearly exceed the amount of time that we are in production compared to the North Sea. I don't think there's any question about it. Our wind generation potential, over 5,000 megawatts, is the best in North America. And we have the ability to couple that with our large hydro reservoirs, which means we have what they call firmed up electricity from a wind perspective. There's no one as well positioned with respect to wind as we are. Hydro, 6,000 megawatts still in development, including Gull Island. Muskrat Falls under development. Let's not forget the great Upper Churchill. #1 in the world for the catchment size of the basin, larger than New Brunswick. #5 in the world with respect to actual output of power at 33 terawatt hours. And #10 in the world from the installed capacity perspective, 5,428 megawatts. You talk about world-class assets, we've been sitting on one of those things for 40 years. How fast as time goes? 2041, 27 years away. Decisions have to be made now to be ready for 2041 when the upper church comes back under our particular control. We all know that in this room. This is not going to be a 2037 decision or a 2039 decision. These decisions will be made very, very soon. They have to be. We have established transmission access both ways. 260 megawatts through Quebec, 500 megawatts through the Maritimes into the northeast New England. We've proven we can do both. We've proven the viability of subsea transmission here. It's been proven elsewhere in the world, but we've shown it ourselves it can be done. We need more. Investment is required. Think 30 to 35 years from now. We're well poised, well positioned, and we are in a tremendously exciting time. There's no question we can be one of the richest jurisdictions in the world per capita within 30 years from now. Courageous decisions and key investments continue to be required. The true impacts will be realized in time for Alexander and every other grandchild. The investments have to be prudent, well planned, and well executed, but they are required, and we have to make them now. Simply put, Nalcor's role as the people's company is to help this province gain greater benefit from its resources and shape the economic future. Nalcor's vision to build a strong economic future for successive generations of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. It was born of the mandate we were handed 9 years ago. I felt then that to achieve our goal, to generate enough wealth from a Crown state-owned oil company to deliver ongoing prosperity for future generations, the organization's own people had to feel, had to embrace it, it had to become part of who they are. At that time, we continued to say, what's critical within Nalcor is if you say you're going to do it, you got to do it. We do what we say we're going to do. Collectively, we knew we had to begin with the end in mind. As the great ball player and philosopher Yogi Berra put it, if you don't know where you're going, you're likely to end up somewhere else. So in the next few moments, I'm going to sketch out the details of how we intend to continue to fulfill our vision. We started both with the end in mind and a game plan for getting there. 8 years ago, we defined 5 phases of evolution of a company of this nature. Phase 1, I call it the plan, build a plan and act upon it. Phase 2, lay the foundation. Make sure the foundation is poured and is in place for the build. Phase 3, take your time to consolidate as you go. Phase 4, be prepared for the next level of growth. In Phase 5, end up with a company that's providing the people of the province long-term sustainability. We're currently in Stage 3, on schedule, headed for Stage 4 and 5. Phase 5 I look at as the phase post-2041, but let's start the story at the beginning. Phase 1, preparing the plan, 2005-2006. That plan involved putting the right people in the right seats, identifying the vision, values, and objectives and goals for Nalcor long-term, establishing clear focus areas, and making sure we have measurement processes in place to be able to measure against our goals. We identified 2 focus areas for progress, 2 key focus areas: safety, absolute #1, and growing Nalcor as a high-performing organization, which includes world-class asset management processes and plans. We put common processes in place across the company so that people could hit the ground running throughout the company if they moved around and when they moved around. And we knew that every division of the company had to be working on different things, but had the base processes and values the same across. And finally, we developed this long-term 5-phase approach to our future. We moved into stage 2 and around the 2006-2007 phase up till now, 2013. At this stage, we were determined to set the table for growth by improving processes and performance. We also acquired the first tranche of our growth-enabling assets. We did what we said we were going to do. We acquired an ownership stake in Hebron, the White Rose Extension, and Hibernia South. We sanctioned Muskrat Falls, the Labrador Island Link, and the Maritime Link. We finalized the federal loan guarantee for Muskrat Falls with the federal government. We built a partnership with Emera, under which the Maritime Link will be built. We completed the New Dawn agreement with the Innu Nation, our great partners in the Innu, that will enable the Lower Churchill project to proceed both Muskrat Falls and Gull. We acquired the Bull Arm fabrication facility, prepared that for the next step, building Hebron. We created an energy marketing division that has successfully concluded U.S. export power sales through Quebec into Canadian markets as well as New England and New York. And we developed an offshore seismic exploration program designed to facilitate additional oil exploration and lead to more oil discoveries as we move to the future. Taken together, these assets position us for dramatic future growth. Our projects will pay long-term dividends to the province. During that time, our financial performance has also dramatically improved. We became, from a debt equity ratio perspective, second worst in the country to the best. We improved our debt equity from about a 75-25. We brought it to a 38 from about a 40-60. 40 debt, 60 equity to prepare for growth. Long term, we're targeting 60-40. Our net income in that period increased by 50%. During that same period, we made great strides in the focus areas, other key focus areas. Our safety performance improved by over 75%. Our environmental performance improved. We took a completion rate of our targets from an average of 75% to now we're averaging north of 95% consistently. We made the decision to replace Holyrood in the long run and turn the province into almost 100% renewable from an electricity perspective. Let me digress for a moment though. As we all know, Newfoundland Labrador Hydro experienced a series of equipment malfunctions during the last severe winter. It caused real hardship for people. We understand that. And we face up to our responsibility for the outages. It's our responsibility, it's our accountability. We have completed a thorough investigation into the outages. I will tell you we're well along in a plan to fix the things that we found. We will be prepared for the coming winter, and we're cooperating very well with the Public Utilities Board and the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador, both which have additional studies on the go. Our asset management program has put us in a good position to deliver reliable supplies of electricity to Nalcor, so we can provide it to the province. In the interim, we have expedited the acquisition of additional planned new generating capacity, and we're continuing to improve our processes. In light of I just want the folks know as well that we have put a comprehensive asset management plan in place, and it has yielded the fact that we understand we have 40-year-old plus assets. They need a lot of work. And we have doubled the capital expenditures in Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro since 2005. We will triple them in 2014, and if we include the new pieces of equipment that we're bringing in that have been planned, the new line plus the new generation, we will have invested 6 times the amount in 2014 as we will have in 2005. Want to let folks know we're on top of it, and we'll be ready for the winter, and we'll keep folks informed. Back to the stage, that's stage 2. We built a solid foundation for the growth. Stage 3, consolidating our gains. We have Muskrat Falls, Labrador Island Link, and Maritime Link. We're involved in 3 large offshore projects. We're in the middle of a rebuild of our electricity assets, both at Churchill Falls and Hydro. This is a time of consolidation. This is a time we step back, consolidate, execute. So we're going to continue to focus on our operating performance improvements, execution of the major projects. We will take advantage of growth opportunities if they're presented, but we're not going to be aggressively chasing them over the next 5-year period. Pulling back, consolidating. That being said, one thing we are doing is setting up a separate team totally focused on preparation activities for 2041, the Upper Church of Repatriation. A team, total expertise, coordinated planning. We're going to be ready. And in this regard, overall, I think one of the most exciting things that we'll be doing is the 2D seismic program that Jim Keating and his team have initiated and will lead to a very, very bright oil future. Stage 4 is probably going to be the critical phase. In stage 4, I call it the next level of growth. That's the time when we're going to refocus our efforts back into the growth phase. Newfoundland Labrador has the most promising and least explored offshore sectors on the globe. It's also one of the most successful. Our sector has tracked down some elephant oil fields, and there's more out there. Our overall yield of more than 19 million barrels of oil per well is more than double the yield of the British sector in the North Sea. More importantly, we're in our infancy when it comes to exploration. Only 207 exploration and appraisal wells have been drilled in the Newfoundland and Labrador offshore sector. That's about one for every 4,400 square kilometers. In Norway, there's been more than 1,400 such wells. They started at the same time we did. They have one per 461 square kilometers. At stage 4 then, we're going to build on our success and compound our returns and pay big dividends to the shareholder. We will retain focus on our performance. We'll be pursuing oil and gas opportunities. But let's not forget, we'll also be developing Gull Island and other sources of hydro renewable that we have. We'll be developing large wind in increments that we can take bite-sized chunk and incorporate into the hydro reservoir world so that we can have staged wind development. And we'll be deeply in preparations to receive the Churchill Falls project back in hand and be ready to go with whatever we end up finding together as the best alternative for us. That takes us to stage 5, at which point Newfoundland and Labrador will be in a situation where we have Nalcor can provide, even apart from the revenues that the province will be taking in, Nalcor can provide significant dividends and cash flow for a sustainable future for many, many generations to come. Our projections, with the projects we have in hand right now, like given Muskrat Falls, Labrador Island Link, the Maritime Link, transmission through Quebec, the 3 oil projects, Newfoundland Labrador Hydro Bull Arm, and our energy marketing division, I call it a bird in the hand. Our projection is currently that in around the 2020 timeframe, give or take a year, Nalcor will be generating approximately $350 to $500 million per year in net income and more in cash flow. As you move to the 2030s, taking a conservative approach on our projections, net income and cash flow will be well north of $1 billion on an annual basis. We get things right, and we will, coming out of 2041 with continued growth in the oil and gas, continued growth in other hydro, and overlaying the great Churchill Falls. The numbers are large. Suffice to say, in only the Nalcor piece, net income cash flow will be in the several billions with upside. So at Nalcor, we're asking you to think long term. Success in this world, in our world, is measured over decades, not in days. Can we do it? You know, one of the greatest companies I have respect for in the world, and there's many out there, but I always look at the Statoil story. Statoil was not built in a day. The Norwegian state oil company was formed in 1972 to take a stake in offshore oil and gas production in the Norwegian sector of the North Sea. 42 years later today, Statoil employs 23,000 people worldwide and holds oil and gas assets and exploration bases around the globe. Obviously including ourselves, just look at Beta Nord. Most importantly, Statoil is one of the major contributors to Norway's oil fund. The fund, as we like to call an Alberta Heritage Fund on steroids, is now one of the world's largest investment pools, valued at more than $900 billion. $900 billion. In addition, Norway is now one of the wealthiest countries in the world with a gross income of $62,000 per capita. Can we match that success here in Newfoundland and Labrador? No question. Absolutely. All indications are we have comparable, probably larger resource potential in the offshore oil and gas. And at 500,000 people, 1/10 of Norway's population, the numbers add up quickly. Today we have tremendous hydro, we have tremendous wind and oil resources. Energy resources to generate royalties for the provincial government, to create a huge pool of job opportunities, to supply large resource projects on the island and in Labrador with affordable, reliable supply of long-term power, with plenty left over to export to energy-hungry neighboring jurisdictions that will pay top dollar. We are well positioned. We have to do what we say we're going to do. I look at what I see are the 5 key ingredients for continued success. The first is we need to continue to achieve full alignment. 500,000 people. Every one of us has to be rowing in the same direction, especially the young people. We know how fast this goes. Most people in this room will be in rocking chairs in another 5 or 10 years. It's the young people who are going to take this thing over the top. And what we have to show them, I believe, the best thing to show them is the value of alignment. We have to assume leadership, and we've done that. This country needs a national energy program. We know that. Everyone knows that. We have the issues with the pipeline out west between BC and Alberta. We've had our transmission issues with our good friends in Quebec for many, many years. We know we need a centralized national energy strategy. But we've known that for 100 years. I think in the realization of that, we have to take a leadership position in terms of making it happen. We've proven that in the Muskrat Falls operation, where we stood back and said, well, federal government, what do you need? And we understood what that was, a regional project. We completed our arrangement with Nova Scotia, Emera, provinces of Newfoundland and Labrador, Nalcor. We created a regional project. We created access into New England. We went back to the federal government, and let's face it, they were there for us. $5 billion loan guarantee. Huge value. That's what I think when I say assume leadership. We have to stop looking outside for solutions. The solutions have to rest here. We have to take leadership. The third one, focus on the long game. Investments now, think 35 years out. We need to be resilient, have courage. We all know it'll be a bit of a rocky road to Dublin, but we have to stick with it. Finally, steady as she goes, one step at a time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ed. It was a great speech there, talking about the future vision for Nalcor and growth potential that's there for both Nalcor and the province. It's now time for our final question and answer period of the morning. If you have a question, please pass along your question card to one of the NOAA staff and I'll ask it on your behalf. Please remember to indicate which speaker or speakers you wish to answer the question. The members of the media are reminded to please hold their questions until after this session is concluded. Alrighty, I'll just start off with a question here for Brent. In light of the recent announcement that Suncor is going to be investing in the Shell-led exploration program off southeast Nova Scotia, can you give any further updates on Suncor's strategy regarding the deep water and slope plays in eastern Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we're really excited to be partnering with Shell and Conoco in that play, and really excited about the opportunity in Nova Scotia. There's still a lot of work to be done to develop that play. Obviously, some exploration drilling later this year, next year. But as part of our strategy, Suncor is really about balancing some exploration risk. You know, we'll remain focused on kind of the near field development opportunities around existing assets, but on a balanced approach, we're looking to expand into the deep water and do some balanced plays. And the Nova Scotia opportunity is one of those that is really attractive to us at this point.
Thank you very much, Brent. Sorry, I'm starting to read this. Okay, this is a question for Ed Martin. 30 wells were drilled in the 70s and 80s and discovered gas and oil and a small amount of oil. Nothing has so far been developed. I believe this is reference to Labrador. What is the evidence for the statement that new prospects are likely to be oil?
So several years ago, when we took on the oil and gas side of the business, the first thing we did, we knew we had to get some of the best people, and we got some of the best people, primarily highly educated, highly qualified Newfoundlanders and Labradorians from a subsurface perspective that were operating and acting and working worldwide. We were fortunate enough that they agreed to come home, and we have a very, very strong asset team there. They actually looked at the results that early on. Most of the oil companies, most of the players found gas, felt there was nothing coming off the near shore, flowing into the slope and deep water that indicated anything else but gas problem. Our folks had a different idea. We've done the seismic work. We've also done things such as satellite oil seep work, many other studies, and we had a feeling that slope and deep water likely oil prone. Every indication we have found since then indicates that slope and deep water offshore Labrador is oil prone. We've seen some magnificent potential structures. The proof is in the pudding. We have to drill, but what we're seeing there is definitely oil prone. And we know that in the last, I think the last year or so, approximate expenditures in the slope and deep water approaching $50 billion worldwide. We are only attracting a fraction of that. And what we're in the process of doing is partnering with the provincial government, with TGS and PGS and Nalcor. We've taken the 2D seismic work, coupling that with the great work from the CNLOPB in terms of improving the land management system, and we've gone worldwide. We've had at least 30 to 40 visits, every major oil center in the world, multiple times, and we're making sure the world understands what we have here and make sure that when we go to the next round of land sales, there's going to be a tremendous amount of companies that are going to be here at the table, ready to bid, and that will push the competition in the offshore. And to us, that's the key to the future here, is to expand the bid base, expand the interest, and let's get this thing going.
Thank you very much, Ed. Got one more question here for you. It's a little bit of a summary here. Would you be able to please repeat and brief the 5 things that we need to do in Newfoundland in order to be successful?
The 5 things. Achieve alignment. 500,000 people. We have to be rowing in the same direction. And to come back to the young people and the younger people, as I said, most people in this room will be moving on. The young group will take us over the top, and we have to make sure that we prove and show to them the value of full alignment as we achieve what we're trying to achieve. Assume leadership. Newfoundland Labrador is leading the country. No surprise to us, but we have to continue that. And I use the example of the national energy policy. We need one, but until it happens, let's make one here. Let's make a Newfoundland and Labrador national energy policy, and do what we have to do to get it done. Let's wait for nobody. We need to focus on the long game. Every investment we make, we have to look at the impact in 35 to 40 years, not now. I mean, our time is really over. It's for the next generation. So we need to make our investments today based on what's good for them. Be resilient and have courage. As I use the term, it's going to be a rocky road to Dublin. This is not going to be easy stuff. But we have the wherewithal, we have the capital, we have all the resources. We have to be resilient, and we have to have courage to make the move. And finally, steady as she goes. One step at a time. Do what we're going to do. Do what we said we're going to do. And put one foot in front of the other every day and keep moving no matter what.
very much. Let's get you for one more question here, Ed. You've laid out a very dynamic and exciting future for Nalcor in your presentation. As part of that, do you have any concepts or are there any early strategies in Nalcor for any potential international focus later on in your plans?
Absolutely, I think we'll always take targets of opportunity. There's no question about that if they make economic sense. But in reality, I think when you approach the stage 5, when you're in the 2040 time frame, 35, 2040, 2045, the projected cash flows are very large. At that point, and I do go back to Statoil, as I mentioned, I think they're a great company, a great model for us. Smaller population country, huge hydro and oil and gas resources. You can learn a lot from what the Norwegians have done. They've taken steps. Look at that. We do that. I believe, first off, let's get the plan done. Let's consolidate now. Let's get further growth in our own area to make sure we have a flywheel effect going here in the province. But at that point, in 2041, the type of cash flow in Nalcor will be throwing off. I don't think there's any question. We're going to be looking for investments. We're going to have enough cash to take care of the debt situation here in the province, between the province primarily with the royalties as well as Nalcor. At that point, we're going to have significant available capital, and absolutely, at that point, sustainability will be to go international. And at that point, the young people from that generation, they will take it even further. And that's why we look at saying this can be sustained forever with respect to where we're headed, and provided we make the right investments now and then.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank again Brent and Ed for speaking with us today. On behalf of NOIA, I'd like to present each of you with a token of our appreciation. Before we adjourn, I'd like to remind you that today's luncheon will be held at the Delta St. John's Hotel across the street and will feature Rick Mercer of the Mercer Report. Immediately following the luncheon, Rick Mercer will be available for a book signing. Copies of his book, A Nation Worth Ranting About, will be available for purchase. That will take place in the lobby just outside the room. And finally,